Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're talking about business partners. What is a business partner? Should I have a business partner? If you're gonna work with a business partner, what do you need to do before you work with them? And then also, if you're currently working with somebody, what are the best practices? So we're gonna go through this quickly today. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. We'll try and get back to you quick. Starting off, what is a business partner? A business partner is somebody that you own your company with. Both of you own equity in that company and you both have a say in what goes on. Often one person will have more equity, and I actually think that's one of the best practices is to have one person who is the deciding vote, who is going to put the most time, the most money, the most effort into the company, and that person is going to have the most equity and hence the most say. So they're going to be the leader, they are going to be the stable visionary for where that company is headed. So a business partner is somebody who would help you on your company, potentially invest in your company, and also own equity in it. So should you work with a business partner? My initial response to this for anybody who's new in entrepreneurship is no. I have had way too many companies that I had a very large vision for that I felt like at the beginning I shared that vision with the owners and that I was going to go work with them and I was going to prove that I should be able to get some equity by helping them to build part of their company. But then even with ones where I did get the equity, they had the majority say in the company, and when things went bad, they decided to shut their company down. And there were things that weren't even bad. We had one company where we started it up, it was a product company, and we started to triple our sales every month, and it was going so well. And then what happened was the owners with the majority share, their parent had a huge medical problem, and we got a couple of bad reviews because we accidentally sent out a batch of bad product and it was too much pressure for them. So even though we had an entire company, we'd worked for a year and a half on it, we got that company shut down because the majority owners decided that it was just too much for them and they couldn't handle the heat. So even though I was a business partner and even though I was headed to having even more equity in the company, I couldn't stop them from shutting down the whole company and for my value in that company going to zero because my business partner couldn't take the heat. So at the beginning, should you have a business partner? I think no. I had sworn off of business partners for a long time until I finally found people who had a definite sure vision that we totally shared. And even then, I wanted to make sure that typically I own my own company, they own their own company, and we work together. Many of you are going, oh, I think I should have a business partner. I'm new in entrepreneurship. I can use all the help I can get. And more than that, me and my friend, we both have supporting skills and we both want to be business owners and we want to work together and have this wonderful story where we got rich together. This is such a common thing, guys. And what I tell all the new entrepreneurs is, hey, at the beginning, why don't you make your own LLC, your own limited liability company, and they make theirs, and then you guys just work together. Let's say you edit videos and you film videos. Okay, well, whenever somebody goes and if you're the editor and you find a new client, say, hey, I actually have a buddy who shoots the videos and he's really, really good. Would you want to hire him as well? And then when he has a client that they say, hey, we need you to come shoot for us, he says, hey, I've got someone who edits. Would you like to work with them as well? And then you guys just get to work as complementary people. But that way, especially at the beginning, you don't run into a problem where maybe one person ends up doing more work than the other one, or one of them is putting in more money than the other one, or one of them isn't really trying or bringing what they said they would to the table. You make money based on what you make money on. And you basically start out by referring each other a lot of clients, and you work and work and work until it doesn't make sense anymore that you remain separate. And this avoids so many problems, guys, because people are people. We all have our problems and we all aren't very good at fixing them sometimes. And so getting a business partner, especially at the beginning, when you are young and you don't know exactly where your company's gonna be. And what I mean by that is often a month in, 2 months in, 3 months in, you're going to pivot your company and start aiming for a different target audience or a different target client, and your services change. And so that idea you had at the beginning when you signed the document, we are partnering on this, has now changed. And sometimes it actually leaves you going, oh no, with the new way that this company is going, I don't actually bring anything to the table. Or maybe they don't. And now you're in this weird spot where it's kind of like, okay, well, what do we do now? And the question is, do you really want to work together? Or, was it just because of the circumstance? And it ends up being usually an ugly process that takes about 8 months to a year, where you kind of go in limbo and try and make it work. Kind of like those relationships where you're like, we're both good people. I don't know why we're not a fit. It's because you're trying to force it now. So at the beginning, I would say, no, do not have a business partner. You both have your own companies and your companies can work together. But that way you're separate. You can both negotiate. You both bring what you bring to the table. And if there's a client that maybe wants to work with one of you, but not both of you, great. If there's a client that needs you, but they don't need the services that your partner provides, great, you work with them. And you don't feel like you're doing all the work and then having to shove out, and then you get this weird kind of regret. It's great to avoid it all. So if you are going to work with somebody, if you find that you're like, no, I've been doing my company maybe for a year, maybe he's been doing his company for a year, or we've both been working at our jobs and we know that we can do this together and we want to. Well, first off, we're gonna get into these best practices, but I'm gonna go over before working together. One, you have to have very, very clear written out statements about your cap table. Your cap table defines who owns what percentage of the company. And then you got to write out roles and contributions. You got to say, this person is going to take care of marketing and accounting and finance, and I am going to take care of customer support, onboarding, and whatever else your company does. But there's many, 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 many hats that need to be worn at the beginning. And so recognizing whose job it is to do that, and then even describing out what that means. And you will love me for this later, because the thing is, if you say, hey, you're in charge of marketing, and then maybe they run like one ad a year, you're going, hey, you're not really doing anything with that. As a company, you need to decide, what are your goals? Who's in charge of it? Who's the responsible party? And then what does that look like? What does the actual standard you're trying to hit look like? So you got your cap table with the equity, you've got your roles and your contributions. By contributions, we're typically talking about capital. We're talking about money. Who's putting in the money? Who's putting in the effort? And what does that mean? Now, something smart to think of is, in the future, who else are we gonna want to have join the company? And where does that equity come from? Because if I say, I'm gonna put in most of the money and you're gonna put in most of the effort, well, maybe we wanna say, I'm gonna put in all this money, but since you're putting in the effort and you're gonna be in the day-to-day, well, let's have you take 55% and I'll take 45%. Okay, well, when you bring on that new person that you say, man, this person is either gonna give us a lot of money or a lot of experience or both, and this person's gonna come in and they say, I wanna be an owner too. Well, first, do you want a business partner? Sometimes it's better just to say, well, we're actually looking for a loan. We're not looking to just give away equity. But if you are gonna bring them on, does it dilute both of your sides? Or is one of yours non-dilutable? Or, are you gonna try and, you don't really do this, but the way that new entrepreneurs think is they go, oh, well, at the beginning, out of the 100%, I'll take 10 and you take 20 and we'll save 70 for later. You don't really do that. You give away the whole 100 and then you dilute from wherever you're diluting from. So it either comes out of their side, your side, or both. Typically both if you're new and you're really a good partnership. So something to think about is, where's that gonna go? Are you gonna need to raise more money in the future? Who has how much equity in the company? Who's putting in what? What are the roles? What are the standards that you're gonna be sticking to? And then the other thing is recognizing that, hey, at some point, we're probably either gonna wanna sell this company or one of us is gonna want out. And this is just the reality of it. And it's really good to have this conversation at the beginning and say, hey, if we're gonna eventually sell this, how are we gonna sell it? And if I wanna get out of here and you wanna stay because I have some other opportunity or something, how do we go about that? Do you buy me out? Do you have to buy me out right away? Do you, pay me out after a while? And another thing that actually, this is kind of a next level one, but also throwing in there, if one of you dies or passes away, what happens to theirs? I've known people who've had a big problem with that, where one person passes away and then technically their spouse ends up inheriting their ownership, and they need to have some bylaws in there where they can buy it back and whatnot. And so good stuff to think about. That's just a few though. There's a few more to go over, but let's go to best practices. So the last thing is, what is your vision? What's your vision for the company? Are you gonna build it and sell? Are you gonna build it and build it and build it forever? Are you gonna build it and see if you wanna sell? Just making sure you're both on the same page. How fast do you wanna grow? How much effort do you expect to put into this? Are you both gonna be putting in equal amounts of effort? Do you plan on hiring people quickly, or are you both gonna pretty much keep it to just you two? What's the plan with that? As far as, like we said up here, roles. Hey, those roles might change in the future, but for now, we're gonna say this is your responsibility. Our standard is you have to hit about this kind of a contribution as far as that role. And then my favorite thing as far as best practices is weekly meetings. If you can do emails for most updates, I think that's great, but I do think there is something to the camaraderie of actually getting together and being pretty raw about, hey, this was our goal, we didn't hit it. Well, what can we do more, or what can we do better to actually hit that now? And more than that, best practices would be, if at all possible, if you are gonna get a business partner, try and partner with someone who's actually already done what you're trying to do, not necessarily a new entrepreneur that's you're both novices. If you can actually partner with somebody who's gonna bring money and a lot of experience in what you're trying to do, you're gonna have the absolute best possible business partner that you can have. Make sure that they're honest and that you guys have very clear contracts. Good contracts don't mean that you don't trust them. It means that you're gonna have a very transparent, good relationship. Make sure that you have similar values to your company, where you guys want to actually do business the same way. You don't want anything unethical or anything like that. And then make sure that you, hopefully guys, known that person for a long while. Every one of my mentors when I was getting new into entrepreneurship was saying, a business partner is just like a marriage. You have to date them, you have to get to know them. Most of my mentors will not make an actual business with a person unless they've known them for well over a year and they've seen them through thick and thin, because they want to know who they're dealing with. And that's one of the reasons why you need to do the before work and say, hey, if I don't want to work with you anymore, then we need to break this up. How do we do it? So guys, good luck out there. I wish the best for you guys. Please watch some of our other videos. Hopefully they're helpful.